perpetual undulating, whirring, and spinning of machinery, the way a worker turns wood on a lathe, or that subtle but intense glow of casting molten metal. There's something hypnotic in watching how it's made. Sitting my dumbass down and learning about the production process of kayaks, bread, shopping carts, oil paint, rubber gloves, fabrics, ballpoint pens, glass bottles, trumpets, holograms, and so much more is, to me, mesmerizing. And yeah, I'm sure there's plenty of people who find this boring or unentertaining, but to me it's fascinating. It really makes me think about all of it in the context of labor and alienation. So depending on how stoned I am when watching, the experience can range from gawking at the miracle of technology and what it can do for us, to some form of deep existential dread about the state of our hyper-industrialized world. The appeal of how it's made is that it shows you the incredible productivity the machines can bring us, but there's also a darkness in there. Since the dawn of humanity and the use of stone-point spears and fire as a tool, humans have used technology to advance our position within the world around us. A lot of that has been positive, technology being used to eradicate diseases or make life a little simpler, saving us time and energy. But of course, technology has been used to cause incredible pain and destruction. It's been used as a means to dominate and control. There's also the aspect of who has been allowed access to which technology, and how technology has contributed to the global ecological crisis we experience today. It's easier to see all this play out today, now more than ever. Technology is used as a cudgel, as a status symbol, as an exterminator. But this doesn't mean we should turn our back on technology or disavow it entirely. Maybe don't surrender all your tools to your enemy, after all. Watching how it's made shows how fascinating technology can be. Every time I watch the show, it makes me think of the very idea that we were once tree-dwelling arboreal apes in the jungles of Africa millions of years ago, and now we're tooling and machining with such incredible precision. But despite how technology has been used as a tool on behalf of dominator culture, I can't help but be proud of the human species when I see how beautifully a canoe is crafted, or what goes into the making of a fire truck, or how neon signs are produced. There's a beauty in labor, in what we as humans have always done since we branched out of nature and into higher consciousness. We have created, crafted, designed, and carved, bent and heated, chiseled, painted, cut and sawed, molded, welded, grinded, sculpted, and produced. It's one of our defining traits. We create things, we make things, and of course, we often sell those things we make. So when I watch how it's made, it makes me think of what these machines that are making the denim jeans and bathtubs actually represent. And essentially, to me, they represent labor. They represent the worker. But when we see a machine making bread, we often see the machine as the thing that makes the bread. And while that's true, it's something that has replaced the labor done by the worker who would otherwise bake that bread by hand. Also, the machine itself was designed and created by workers. Machines in production are a tool to more easily create an object or commodity. That's how most people see it, not often thinking about the labor which companies replace these machines with. These machines used in production shouldn't replace a worker, but make that worker's job easier. Of course, under capitalism, we've seen just how depraved capitalists would become in their search to eliminate wages and extract as much surplus capital as possible. This is reflected in the history of capitalism, particularly in the United States, with chattel slavery. Africans were not seen as people, they were seen as property, as workhorses. They were seen as machines. They were seen as something which could keep overhead costs down by refusing them a life, therefore refusing them a wage, therefore increasing profits and capital in the work they do, and the commodities they produce like sugar, cotton, and tobacco. This is also reflected in the Industrial Revolution, whereas we saw not only a rise in machinery, but we saw a rise in child labor alongside that. Due to this, child mortality rates skyrocketed. These children were used and abused and disregarded to keep the profits high for capital owners. In the modern world, one way this was supplanted was with the machinery itself. No need for workers. We have the machine. And don't forget the unending attempts on behalf of capitalists to undermine labor unions and workers attempting to unionize as they have since the very inception of unionization. Undercutting labor has always been a goal of capitalism in its boundless and uncompromisingly vicious search to extract profits by any means necessary. And again, now, in our postmodern world, this is being supplanted by generative artificial intelligence. AI is the shiny new toy in the eye of capitalists whose ambitions are to undercut and replace workers with AI technology. If they had it their way, it wouldn't just be visual artists and call center agents being replaced with AI. It'll be coding programmers, doctors, writers, paralegals, travel agents, journalists, service jobs, bookkeepers. If they had it their way, no labor would be safe from AI. Their goal is to replace workers, replace labor. But despite all the ills technology has brought us, I can't turn my back to it. I won't turn my back to it. I choose not to see advancements in technology as an inherent problem, but what people do with that technology. Technology will always be used for political and ideological purposes. That's a fact. Whoever has their hands on the technology can use it as a tool for their ideological goals. You've got a tool, so what do you choose to do with it? To what ends do you choose to utilize these tools, these technologies, these machines? Now, there are a lot of machines in how it's made. That's not to say it doesn't feature workers. The workers of how it's made is one of its most endearing aspects. Throughout the series, you'll see incredibly skilled workers, from the dexterous speed at which they can operate a sewing machine to woodworkers and metallurgists utilizing millennia of passed down knowledge. In popular culture, there's this misconception about assembly line factory workers having meaningless and mindless jobs. The idea of screwing dongles on widgets or whatever. But this kind of thinking undermines just how crucial those workers who operate those positions on an assembly are to the manufacturing process, to the business as a whole. The haste at which they work, demanding precision often required. This is where that old adage comes into play. That being, there's no such thing as unskilled labor. This kind of job reveals the patience someone has to have to accurately accomplish this job. And do you think every person has the skill of patience required for that? You really think, say, a billionaire CEO would have the same patience required to accomplish such a task? I don't think so. So then, what about the billionaire CEO? A lot of criticism of CEOs and the executive class is that they don't do anything to warrant their massive paychecks. And while I certainly don't think they deserve the massive paychecks, in fact, I think they deserve something else. I do see a skill in there. What's the skill? What tool do they use, you might ask? Well, they're able to utilize their wealth as a tool. They're able to utilize their sociopathy as a tool. They're able to use the power they wield over their subordinates as a tool. These are the skills of wealthy CEOs. And if the skill of sociopathy and manipulation is rewarded with millions of dollars a year in salary, it makes you think just how much that patience of the factory worker is worth. How much the endurance of the worker who stands on their feet all day long doing repetitive work is worth. It makes you appreciate their labor so much more, labor that's often hidden away, out of view, out of mind. It also makes you want to protect that laborer and their labor. This is why in pop culture, working a repetitive assembly line factory job is considered meaningless and soul-crushing, because capitalism often denies those laborers a meaningful wage, so they become alienated from their work, and so the work becomes othered by society, and conditions continue to worsen for the worker if their material needs aren't being fulfilled by the employer. Industrialized society has been one of the alienated worker. As the world rapidly industrialized, machinery and technology booming, professional skilled craftspeople began to be replaced by those machines, by the process of automation. Now, the shoemaker, who was once in control of their own domain, is now a factory worker. The meaningfulness they once felt as a shoemaker is no more. Now, no longer in control of any aspect of their job, they become alienated from their labor. They don't feel connected to it, proud of it. They feel like just another cog in the machine used by the capitalist company. This is alienation. The discontent you feel from having no autonomy in your labor. You don't have a profession anymore, you just have a job. You're now just creating surplus profit for the company, feeling like your dignity is being lost in the process. Feeling exploited and dejected, this bleeds over into the rest of your life outside of your job, especially when the capitalists demand more and more hours of your life. With stagnating pay and little compensation, you can work for a company for decades and decades without seeing any material control over your work environment, without having a say in how your employment is operated. But maybe that monotonous assembly line position wouldn't be so dispiriting if the worker made a wage that made their life materially better, received benefits that made their life materially better, if they were able to own a home, if they weren't overworked and had time to live a meaningful and fulfilling life outside of their job. Or imagine this, and I know it might be difficult, but imagine if that worker had a say in how their workplace was run and operated, a say in what the limits of control their employer had over their work and their life. Maybe things would be better for the worker. I don't know, who knows? When you're watching how it's made, if you're thinking a little bit deeper, of course, there's the apparent bleak side of the show. It's up front and center, an endless parade of plastic and petroleum-based products produced on a mass scale, something which contributes to the collapse of our natural ecosystems, contributes to our rapidly increasing climate change, plastic which ends up in the ocean, in your tributaries, in your gut, in your fucking ballsack. You're confronted with the total scale at which this takes place. You're confronted with the resources that go into the production of these products, the minerals, the chemicals. After all, how it's made doesn't feature the resourcing of materials, only the manufacturing which uses those resources. Resources which are likely sourced under hyper-exploitative conditions, perhaps even by a child far across the globe, out of your sight. Again, out of your mind. It's a grim reality the show probably doesn't intend for you to think about, but when I watch, I can't help but think about it. Think about the powers and control that allow this to happen, and for what ends? Profits? The fact is, mass manufacturing has revealed to us that there's plenty to go around. We can produce enough food, enough tools, enough goods for everyone. During the Industrial Revolution and well into the end of the 20th century, the public began to buy the idea that this automation would lead us to some sort of world of abundance, a world where there's enough for everyone, a future of equality. I touched on this a bit in my video on retrotech and product ontology, so check that out if you're interested. We of course in hindsight knew this futuristic city on the hill was never real, because automation and the labor and products this automation produced was always in the hands of capitalists. They controlled the abundance. It was always in the white-knuckled clutch grip of the capitalist profit motive. They'll gladly exchange the collapse of an ecosystem for the extra capital in their pockets. They'll gladly cause death in exchange for $1. That's why one of the core aspects of the US capitalist system has, every step of the way, done everything it can to undermine and destroy labor unions. It's why US institutions have, since the 1950s, offshored nearly all of its manufacturing jobs to outside countries for cheap, quick, exploitative labor. How it's made exists within that liminal space between the dizzying yet mesmerizing spectacle of mass production and the recognition that labor and production is a thing that makes us uniquely human, something which must be attended to and protected from the forces that seek to undermine the laborer. We may see a product, but we don't always see the labor, the resources. We may see a product, but we don't always see how we got to this point. Much is taken for granted. Much is obscured by the forces in control. The mechanism of capitalism's power keeps a firm grip on how the public perceives manufacturing, production, and labor, training yourself to not just look at a product and see a product, but to recognize all that goes into the production of that product. From the accumulation of resources to the marvel of manufacturing to the final product, the one aspect that ties all of these together is labor. Labor almost exists as a divine thing. To desecrate it with an undignified wage and oppressive conditions is an affront to humanity itself, spitting in the face of what makes us human, our capacity to create, invent, and produce. But we're surrounded by institutions which aim to do exactly that. Alienate you from your labor, from your workplace. Alienate you from your joys, your hobbies, and your life. Alienation is their tool, their weapon. The blade is at your neck. They understand they have the power. You look around. There's no one there to protect you. You've been alienated. You've had your power taken away. Your labor used against you to benefit the profits of the corporations which control your lives. Your labor, a thing which stretches back through all of human history. When we were throwing spears, when we were gathering grain, when we were making fires and cooking meat over a flame, all those hundreds of thousands of years ago, it was labor that made us who we are. Don't let them alienate you. Don't let them alienate others. Let them know you see the product, but more importantly, let them know you understand exactly how it's made.